Okay, so we got two new units, Hoyan and Holden, and they're going to be releasing very soon. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the reasons why you probably should or shouldn't summon for them. And this is going to be the first of many videos for us to make about new units because I used to do this for my other gachas and we will be doing it for this one too. Now, I'm going to be streaming their launch and that's going to be at 10 p.m. EST today, right? So if you want to be there, just turn on notifications, like the stream would be greatly appreciated. I'll put this in the pinned comment. Now let's go back to Holden. I really want to talk about him mainly. I think he is probably the better unit out of the two and also the one that's just more interesting in general. Also because we've already known about Hoyan's kit. Even if it's slightly changed, we've known about it for a while. So one thing I didn't really touch on was his speed, but overall this boy is very quick. For like a DPS, I would definitely say he is on the higher end. If we go down, he's at 135, the highest speed is 143, so he would place himself right here, same speed as Hoyan, and you'll see that there is a lot of the game actually lower than him in terms of SSRs. Like there's a decent bit. Being a DPS, I would say he is one of the higher ranking ones. I think the only SSR DPS higher than him would be Born and Chloros, and you could technically consider Heinrich. So it's pretty interesting. He is pretty high, especially with what he's doing. So let's really get into it. Now, his kit really does revolve a lot around his skill 1. So for every 500 defense, he's going to get extra counterattack and damage increase. So 10% counterattack rate for 500 defense and an extra 5% damage result for 500 defense, right? So I would say like on average, most people, like especially in the later portion of what we're at right now, if you've been playing since day 1, are really going to be at like a 40 to 50% counterattack rate with a 20 to 25% damage increase, which is quite good. You just have that permanently, right? So that's really good. Now, his skill 1's also super strong because it's going to be with that damage increase also counting a 330% defense damage. However, every hit, which is 3 hits, is going to be having a 20% chance to lower defense. Now, why this is crazy is because let's say you apply the defense lower on the first hit, your other two hits are going to have that defense lower counted into their damage, which is going to make this damage potentially very high. And remember, this is going to be every single counterattack. You're going to do the 330% with the actual defense lower, which is going to be really good. Then his skill 2 is going to be a pushback, which is good for everything, right? Just in general, very fucking strong and pretty high damage. And then his ult is an AoE, dispel, attack, and res minus. And the res minus is going to play to where your defense lower is going to have a higher chance to proc because you're going to lower their resistance to debuffs, right? So all of these things considered, let's talk about what he's going to be good in and why you should probably summon for Holden. Well, he's going to be good in terror because his damage type advantage is going to be pretty decent. I mean, he's built off of defense and probably crit because you want to crit to get this guaranteed. And he's going to be putting res minus, attack minus, defense lower, right, on the enemy. So you're going to have a lot of things covered. However, he does overlap with kits like Marvel with the res minus or Kloss with the defense lower. However, with this defense lower, it means you're going to almost certainly have it up almost all the time when Kloss won't. And then also, well, I mean, it's going to work very well with the res minus for any percent chances on other debuffers. So overall, I would say he is quite good when you consider that. Now, the turn meter pushback is going to be really good for a lot of things, but I'm really thinking of him in Aurora, right? So right now, Heinrich is very good, right? And why is Heinrich good? Well, if I could find the boy, why Heinrich's good is because he has the dispel from his, well, skill 1, and then the ult has the block chance, right? So what you're going to be able to do, though, with Holden is while the dispel is only on the ult, it is pretty much guaranteed if you get a crit. It's a 4-turn cooldown, yes. However, you're also going to have this to push back the turn meter and maximize skill cooldowns, which I think in PvE should still work pretty well. But the thing is, like, having the res minus 2 and everything else is going to let you, especially if you have like 1 or 2 other speed or turn meter manipulators, make it so that you dispel their debuff immunity and almost always keep debuffs up. So like if you have a speed lower, like I mean, I guess you could say Marvel or something like that. With Marvel, these 2 units are going to work very well. It's kind of crazy to think about. And then his damage with the defense lower, like his damage is still going to be pretty good type neutral. And then with all the debuffs he's placing, and then the turn meter lower. In Aurora, he's going to be great because Aurora, there's going to be the debuff immunity, and then you're going to want to get rid of that to then apply the debuffs and then try and get those kills quite quick, right? And it's going to work. It's going to definitely work with Holden. And then in Terra Maton, I mean, he's going to do his damage, put the attack minus, res minus, defense minus, and then turn meter pushback on the main target probably. But the crazy part, if you really consider it, is because there's 3 enemies, you're probably going to be getting your counters in a lot and attacking, which is good. And then furthermore, in there, you have to also consider that he's type advantage with his pretty decent damage built as a DPS who's able to get really solid debuffs in. He's going to be very similar to Heinrich, right? So he has very similar roles to a lot of units, but the attack minus, especially with someone like Klaus in Terror, is going to be huge because attack minus is going to work very well with the damage lower on the enemy to where they're going to do a lot less damage. And because there's res minus and then also defense and all that shit, all the debuffs are going to start stacking up to where Holden is going to be able to work extremely well with a lot of other debuffers. And because these are essentially guaranteed when you max it out, it's huge. Now, let's say Terror gets a hit in. What's great is he dispels buffs, right? Terror has a defense buff, and then you could dispel it. So that's great. And then for Union Boss, if you could get these counterattacks in, oh boy, bro, it's going to be insane, like, especially if you have the defense minus almost always up with the res and attack lower. Once again, I really think Holden and Klaus are just such a good combo because you're going to have defense minus, you're going to have damage increase, you're going to be lowering turn meter like all the time, you're going to have all the damage lowers, and then he's going to keep on pushing back, which maybe you don't want to push back in some instances on a Union Boss because you would want to get the counters in. But still, if you get the RNG of every counterattack, this guy's going to be doing quite the damage and working very well with debuffs in terms of other units. So it's very good. Like overall in PvP too, with the dispel, attack minus, and res minus, and everything he's doing, he's going to work with the counterattacks and all that very similarly to Rahu. But like he has to be attacked. However, most DPSs are AoE. Like the thing is now, especially with Holden, it's actually kind of ironic now that Hoyan's coming because Hoyan's single target, right? So you could very much avoid Holden's counterattack, right? But that's not really the case for a lot of the top DPSs if we're really looking at it in PvP. AoE, 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 splash AoE, AoE, right? So it's like when you consider all of that, I mean, AoE, 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 right? All of these guys have AoEs on the top. And when you consider that, well, yeah, no, he's going to start going crazy with these defense minuses. If you pair him with like an actual true AoE DPS, maybe like Mass, right? It's going to go very well for your team. If you have another debuffer, like this res minus, I think is really huge. But everything he's doing here is insane, in my opinion. So I'm definitely saying that most people should summon for Holden. Now let's talk about Hoyan, right? Hoyan is quite good. She's got a wound here. She's doing pretty good damage, and she's going to get up to 120% attack buff by the end, but she's mainly PvP focused, right? The problem is I don't see her being that crazy for Doki Doki for fast runs because her ult is unfortunately single target, right? So that does put her in a bit of an unfortunate position, right? But it's a bit risky because her soul word is basically when she basically dies, she's gonna live but survive with 1 HP. And you could use this every 4 turns. However, that is gonna be good, but that 1 HP, you're gonna basically be forced to run a healer unless you will die with Hoya in the turn after, which sure, you do save yourself a turn. It's just something to keep in mind, right? That she's not rezzing and getting extra HP anymore, but she's gonna do a lot of damage because it's gonna be 450% damage and guaranteed at minimum with this in mind, a 50% damage increase, but at maximum, if she's about to die, a 100% damage increase, to my understanding, because you can have 1% HP, but it should count either 100 or 99%, right? Something like that. And then if she's at that 1% HP with the like soul ward, technically she's going to get this attack buff no matter what, even if enemies won't get res. So her damage is going to be very high. Her skill 1's going to be good because no healing, like it might not seem like that crazy, but being able to stop the healing to almost guarantee the kills is very, very strong. So now let's talk about it. I don't really want to get too much into Hoyan's kit. Like she has the res and all that, but it's going to be hard. In my opinion, maybe I'll change my opinion and then we'll be able to go back to this. But for right now, I'd say be conservative with your pulls on Hoyan. Okay, she's very good in PvP. I think she might be tier 0 in PvP in DPS. However, that's all she's going to be. Where instead you got someone like Holden, who it's like Aurora for his buff removal and also his debuffs and his like type neutral damage. Terramaton for his damage. Union Boss probably going to be decent, at least tier 0.5. PvP very good. So it's like you're getting an all-around better unit from Holden. So if you have to pick one of the two, I'm going to pick Holden. Now, this should not stop you from getting Freya. I think Freya is still a necessity. So I would say still get Freya first, and then afterwards, especially considering the kit changes, I would go for Holden next. And I would be very conservative about summoning for Hoyan. Probably, I'd rather even save crystals to summon and get refreshes, if anything, right? So I just don't think it's that worth it to summon for Hoyan right now. Is she very good? Yes, I think for PvP she's great, and if you want someone for PvP, that's great. However, Holden's also going to be good for PvP, so you have to keep that in mind. But she's not a bad unit. It's more so she's more of a concentrated unit on PvP rather than someone just being good at everything like Holden. And it's really good because like green was already overstacked, right? If we really think about it, Kloss, Rahu, Freya, Romocha, all top tier units. Lilith very good in PvP. Where red, it's like in terms of really good units, like you didn't really have all-around units, okay? I mean, there's none here that I would say are all-around good units. Maybe Beonton, that's like the only one. Most of them either are like early game like Leon or very focused on one specific thing. So keep that in mind that like Holden being good all-around was kind of needed when both other colors had very good units in every, both other RGB colors had good units all around, where now Holden is going to make up for red too. So that's going to be it. I think Holden is the must summon, in my opinion. I think you gotta go for him, especially as we go to Terror. As we go to Aurora. This is perfect timing because being able to help for Aurora with Holden's probably going to be definitely a possibility. It's going to be very good. Like as you see right now, many people are running Heinrich with the Ting, obviously the GOAT, but many people are running Heinrich or Viper because he has the same thing on his ult where he does the spell, and it's very similar, right? But Holden does have everything else better, right? So keep that in mind. That I would say probably Holden will be very good for all of this stuff if you want to build a unit. PvP, Union, and then Threshold, he's going to be your guy. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Go summon for Holden. Bye-bye.